topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Welcome to my radio and TV show, Debi Changes Lives. I'm Debi, your certified holistic health coach. I revitalize people's lives by helping them identify the root causes of their health issues and create a custom natural holistic strategy to address them in the areas of mind, body, and soul. As a health coach, I'm not allowed to say that I heal, treat, cure, prevent, or diagnose any diseases. I certainly make your body more efficient by reducing symptoms. You'll feel better, be more productive, and enjoy a life a lot more. Is intermittent fasting a fad? No, it's popular because it works. Intermittent fasting will give you mental clarity, repair cells, and uplift your mood. Why fast the intermittent fasting program that gets your cells and body and humming, and in turn boosts your metabolism and everything else that regular intermittent fasting does. It has rich, dense nutrition and high quality nutrients, and has a program behind it with exercises and recipes. It's a components are a natural part of all my programs, and it can easily be done by itself. You're welcome to reach out to me for more information on it and my coaching programs on my complimentary consultation button of my link tree at Debi Changes Lives, DebiChangesLives, as in Victor, ES.com/LINKTREE. And like I said before, I revitalize people's lives in many areas of health. I guide you to clean, toxic-free foods and high-quality nutrients. My coaching is for optimizing your health, efficiently release weight, and enhancing your mindset. You'll see and feel the differences with my coaching programs. And in my previous episode, May, a month of metamorphosis of life stages, I emphasized the importance of being prepared for the inevitable end of life. And with, thinking about this, it's not very pleasant, but it's crucial to have an estate plan. I've experienced the loss of my parents and my mother-in-law, and they were prepared with living trust. Completing this process provides a sense of relief, knowing that you're helping your loved ones navigate the estate dissolution. Losing a loved one is hard enough, and without the proper planning, it becomes more stressful, with family fighting and possibly the estate going to probate. Well, more likely going into probate. I'm a strong advocate of making life less stressful, and for my clients, and urging them to establish a estate plan. Today, I have Matt Feron, who is an estate planning attorney who has a very interesting background. After starting his legal career as a prosecuting attorney, he opened his office in 2013. With his work in criminal law, led him to represent victims, witness of crimes, and also advising victims of financial elder abuse. He worked in this field and decided to expand his practice into estate planning and administration to help eliminate problems that he saw in certain documents. Matt and I will be discussing the importance of estate planning and how it can provide peace of mind through proper preparation, including basic legal considerations for caring for yourself and your loved ones. So let's welcome Matt Feron, attorney at law, who specializes in estate planning and obviously a lot more. Matt, welcome to my show.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. And for people who don't really understand estate planning, what is an estate plan?
An estate plan is, at its basis, a collection of documents that speaks for you when you are no longer able to speak for yourself. We spend our entire lives building assets, building family, gathering things, and the estate plan's goal is to make sure, maximize the benefit of what you've spent your life acquiring, making sure it goes to who you want it to, or in some cases who you don't want it to. Make sure they don't take a share if you don't need that. For people that have developed a lot of property or a lot of businesses, making sure that the future of those is what you want it to be. So typically that takes the form of a few documents, and feel free to interrupt me here at any point.
But you tell me what the documents are?
So largely speaking, it originally was a will. And that's a document that says who you are, what you have, and who you want to have take that. But, as early as I think the 60s, but at least the 80s and 90s is when they really started becoming popular here in California, where my office is. The trust became the more common vehicle for transferring property at the time of death. And what a trust is, it's a legal entity, similar to a corporation, similar to a partnership. It is a structure that you add your assets to. And that may sound complicated, but in practice, it's fairly easy. It's technical, but as long as you follow the steps, you'll set yourself up for success. The trust's idea functions the same as a will. It dictates who gets what, how they get it, when they get it, and on what terms. Accompanying that, typically, going into your aspect of health in the human body, usually you'll have an advanced healthcare directive or a medical power of attorney, which allows you to give an agent, son, daughter, family, friend, the authority to speak on your behalf if you find yourself in that unfortunate position of not being able to speak for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Taking all those together, along with a few other things that may exist in the realm, that's what an estate plan is. It's not just one document, it's a collection of them, and they're all designed to make sure that your interests and your desires are put forward in a way that you want them to put you in the most control.
Yes, and when it comes to a couple, the health directive is very important to know.
Oh, for sure.
Necessitate and what measures that they want at that time.
Absolutely. And before I go any further, I should say I am a lawyer. I am licensed in California, but none of what I say on this show is intended to be construed as legal advice. I may talk about legal principles, legal concepts, but those are general. Those are not specific. If you guys listening here or have any questions that are specific to you and your facts, I recommend that you speak with a lawyer in your state that is familiar with your laws, as well as set up that attorney-client meeting. That way you can talk in confidence, in privacy, and really that's the difference between legal advice and legal concepts like we'll be talking about today, that the lawyer can go through and research the best outcome for you. This is not what this is. This is just to get the topic started, get the concepts going.
And understanding and me being more comfortable with the idea. So
absolutely. Familiarize yourself. A little knowledge can go a long way.
Exactly. And who exactly needs one?
Honestly, everyone should, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it makes you think about what you have in life and what you want to do with it. And sometimes for some people, that actually allows them to look back and say, I'm not where I want to be, or maybe I could do more. And sometimes that's the catalyst for people seeking out a person like yourself or trying to grow from there. But whatever you have, you want to be able to specify where it goes. The worst case scenario, and you die without any estate planning documents. The recent Michael Jackson case, for those that have followed it, might be a good example. Each state has its own rules for probate, and I'll talk about probate in just a minute to expand on what that is. But if you don't have any documentation, if you have nothing, no plan whatsoever, your state will have a set of default rules to distribute your assets upon your death. If everything you have follows those assets or that process, then yeah, perhaps you might be one of the few people that doesn't actually need a will. But for most people, the vast majority of people, you want to have at least some say in how it goes and where it goes. And that is why I say everyone, regardless of what they have, should at least have a will.
Okay. And you said in Michael Jackson's case, what did he not have?
As far as I understand it, and I would need to double check this, I don't think he even had a will. I believe he died intestate, meaning with no testamentary documents, meaning his entire estate went through probate.
Oh, wow.
Which, that will get very exciting. I imagine it's still probably processing, but I'm not positive, so I don't want to talk too deeply on that.
Okay. So just in general, probate is an expensive process.
Process, all right. So what probate is, just to speak generally, it is a court process. When you're alive, you have the ability to control your life. You have the ability to sign contracts, decide what you're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, give your money out, receive money from other people. You have that authority to do your business. But once you pass away, you lose that ability for obvious reasons. And no one else has that authority because no one else is you. What probate is going to the court and saying, this person has passed away, we need a legal representative to handle their affairs. And traditionally that was done through a will, and you'd go file it with the court, and the court would look at it and say, yes, this is a valid will. Yes, we'll give you this authority. Go make it happen. Or in the case of no will, go through the intestate procedures, follow the code, and go step by step through that. But part of the probate process is that it's bureaucratic. And in some cases, that's a good thing, because then you have the oversight of the court to make sure everything happens well. The downside to it is you're also, I don't want to say competing, but you're on the same calendar as hundreds of other cases. And everything is public. All of your assets will be documented and accounted for and published in the public record. But going through the probate process, the first step is applying for it. And then you have to send notice to everyone, and the court will give you a court date, sometimes a month down the road. And that's just to figure out who will be the administrator. Once that happens, then you need to get your paperwork saying that you are allowed to administer the estate, letters of administration. Sometimes that can take an additional month or two. There is, at least in California, a 4-month window to notify creditors before we can move the estate forward. So already you're looking at 6 months of time. Then with other processing issues, other notification issues, other state notifications need to be sent out as part of the probate process, it is not uncommon for an estate to take upwards of a year to 18 months to fully administer. Mm-hmm. With COVID being a relatively recent affair, that was actually elongated or enhanced because the courts were closed for so long. Pleasingly, we're working through that backlog now, but it's still a very busy calendar for most courts, and it does take time. In addition to that time, though, is the expense you mentioned. The time itself is an expense because you can't distribute until the court gives you authority. But in terms of the distributions, and this is particularly important here in California, where property values are fairly high comparatively, but the probate estate, the administrator, their lawyer, are each compensated as a percentage value or a percentage amount of the gross asset value of the estate. So if you have a house that's worth $1 million, I don't care that it has a $750,000 mortgage on it. It's still $1 million asset, and the fees will be calculated according to that, which in California, it's 4% of the first $100,000, 3% of that second 100, and 2% up to $1 million, and 1% above that. So that $1 million house, 4% of that first 100,000 is $4,000. 3% of that second 100,000 is $3,000, and 2% of the remaining 800,000 is $16,000. So that, by my quick math, is about $23,000 to the administrator and to their attorney. So that's $46,000. In addition to the costs of probate, filing court documents, publishing in newspapers, and the several other factors that the process requires. And that right there can easily be $50,000. And we're just talking about one house and nothing else. So that is where I think trusts really came into their own. They're not just for the super rich anymore. They are for everyone, especially if you have property like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that house was placed into a trust and the trust managed the property and distributed it to the people the trust specified, then that is not an asset that goes through probate. There is no fee associated with that house anymore. And by virtue of running it through a trust, you're effectively, in that instance, potentially saving $50,000 that you can then give to your heirs, to charity, or whoever else you choose. And that, to me, is why most people, at least in California, benefit from a trust over a will. Now, it doesn't mean a will doesn't have a role, because, as I said earlier, a trust is an entity, much like a corporation. It only controls what you put into it. So for your house, you do a trust transfer deed, telling everyone, hey, the trust owns this property. Now, most trusts, when they're written, are revocable. And once what you put in as the maker of the trust, the settlor, the trustor, can usually be brought right back out to you, and you can treat it as your own property. But it still needs to be in title with the trust so that it is viewed as trust property.
Okay.
For a checking account, we may have a car, we may have, smaller personal accounts that just, for whatever reason, either don't make it in or don't make sense to have it in trust. That's where the will comes into play. Again, it controls all the assets you have that aren't already in your trust. And what most trust attorneys, many trust attorneys, will do is what's called a pour over will. A fancy term of saying your will leave the residual stuff to your trust. And that way your trust becomes the global distribution document for all of your assets, even if you forgot something. It still means probate might be necessary, but at least if it is, through whatever bureaucratic reason, it's at least greatly minimized, which saves you time and money.
Well, it would be best to avoid probate. But one question I have, let's say if the person, makes an income and then they pass away, but the income was needed to pay for a mortgage. What happens to that mortgage?
That's a complicated question in some regards. It really depends on who the mortgage company is and how they're willing to work with you. And that can be the value of getting an attorney involved, just for at least so that they speak the same language. Oftentimes, it depends on what your particular mortgage agreement says.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's unique to each person.
Yeah.
But in my experience, most mortgage companies, as long as the payments are kept current, and as long as you're working to distribute the estate, they aren't as concerned, but transparency is always a benefit.
Yeah, because
Again, that is, your mileage will vary, and it will really depend on what's in that statement. But loosely stated, I've not necessarily seen many problems. Reverse mortgages too can have a similar situation. And it really is dependent on the company and what the decedent, the person who died, contracted with them to do.
Okay. Well, that may come in play, but it makes it easier if you don't go to probate, I think, because it doesn't drag out as long.
Absolutely. When it comes time to administer a trust, typically the way a trust is structured, and this is, complete broad strokes, there's a lot of customizability with these, but usually you have it to care for the people that made the trust. Say a husband and wife, they'll be the joint trustors. They make the trust. The trust will initially be set up to provide for them from the assets while the trustors are alive. And then usually in the case of a husband and wife or spouses, when one of them dies, it will set up a new trust to provide for the surviving trustor.
Mm-hmm.
And that trustor dies, the trust will usually spell out what to do with the trust property. And that is where successor beneficiaries come in. Your kids, friends, other family. charities, and it would say, hey, upon this condition, in this case, the death of the surviving spouse, distribute the following assets to the following people in the following ways. Or you could even go so far as to say, you know, to my son or daughter, I understand you've had some difficulties in your life. Here, the trustee will set aside $100,000. And from that, you will receive $1,000 each month.
Yes.
Trust can do that probate can't. Probate is there to transfer assets, not manage them.
Right.
A trust can be set up more creatively to produce income or manage it on behalf of someone who may not have the financial wherewithal to manage it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it does it just by its own operation. Again, broad strokes here. Talk to a lawyer, talk to me, talk to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Details that might be specific to your instance, but
yeah.
So that's the kind of power you get.
Yeah, and you're going to get different opinions from different people. But my whole point is, when it comes to young children, or even children that are young adults, they may not be prepared to take over a big estate, and
Correct.
they need some help. So that's why you have somebody lined up to help them, to do that process.
Absolutely. And then one thing I will say is there's a reason they call it a trust. You need to trust who you're putting in charge of it. Family, friends, make sure the person you choose is someone you trust to follow follow those instructions to the letter.
Exactly.
Because they will be operating mostly without court oversight. Now, you can always take it to court if you have to. No one wants to do that if they don't have to. So taking the time to think about it, set it up right, and really dig into it at the beginning. While that may be a daunting process, there's a lot to go through. I find that once people are done with that process and they're sitting there with the fully executed documents in their hands, there's a general sense of relief that most people have. It gives them peace of mind to know that this has been taken care of. And it can always be amended down the road if you need to.
Yes, it can, because you should be reviewing it with your attorney, once a year or, a few years.
I generally recommend to people at least every 5 years or at any major life moment. Marriage, death, divorce, a new child is born, your child just went off to college, maybe they're now driving. You might have a different outlook than when they were 6, now that they're 16.
Exactly. Now, with your background, you mentioned that you represented elderly that were financially abused. You also saw other risks. What should people be able to look out for or think about with an estate plan being done?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question might be to start off with a bit of my background. I know you touched on it earlier. So I started out my career as a prosecutor, as a district attorney over at San Bernardino County and also up in Tulare County. And in doing that, you're prosecuting crimes, both misdemeanors and felonies, everything from DUIs and petty theft to, in my case, kidnapping and robbery. And with that comes a lot of white-collar crime and certain aspects of elder abuse. And when I moved to private practice and opened up my firm, I was doing primarily criminal defense work at the time, back in 2013. But I also started representing victims of crimes and also witnesses, people that received a subpoena and said, hey, what's this? What do I do with it? Should I worry? Usually the answer is no, don't worry about that. But the court process is often confusing, and for as transparent as we try to make it, it's very formal and can feel opaque. So a lot of people started contacting me saying, hey, can you help me understand what's going on here? For sure. And that led to me representing certain victims of typically financial elder abuse. It also led to me pursuing restraining orders on their behalf. And what I started noticing is, and I hate to say it, more often than not, it was usually a family member and sometimes a child that was either trying to take large sums of money from the estate or convince mom or dad that things weren't the way they were and that things needed to change in their document. And, as I'm sitting there listening to these stories and preparing the petitions, I'm sitting here saying, do you have the copy of that document? Where do they claim to get this authority? And as I started looking through more and more of them, I'm reading the document and saying, I can do better. And I'm not saying that the drafting attorney did it wrong. It's a perfectly functional document. And in the broad swath of cases, it will work perfectly fine. But when you see how it can be twisted, when I saw certain errors and I decided to try and do better myself, seeing where it can go wrong, where it has gone wrong, and where issues arise allows you to draft it in a way that that that's a potential that you can try to avoid. Is any estate plan perfect? No, there's almost always going to be some level of ambiguity or some level of discretion. But again, that's why you find someone you trust, and that's why I recommend people be open with their children and people about what they're doing and why. And again, you may get different advice from different attorneys. Some people say keep it private. Some people say share it. This is just my perspective. Because discussing it with your kids may open your eyes to situations you weren't aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you discover that someone has a particular attachment to something that you just thought was, something to give to charity, and you can leave it to them specifically.
True. That's very true.
Emotions and sentiments are something that people keep close to them, and it's not always, especially in the formalized preparing of an estate plan, it sometimes gets glossed over, and it shouldn't.
You're right about that. And
that's what got me into the actual drafting side of things, realizing that, these are issues, and if I can work to prevent them before they get the chance to become an issue, then that's a better plan for everyone involved.
Yes, it is, because you don't want bickering or fighting.
No, that's the last thing you want.
Whether it's you have an estate plan or in probate is even worse. And then you don't want all that stress. So being prepared on the little details is very helpful. So
for one of the cases I had a number of years ago, it was with regard to an advanced healthcare directive. And, I'm not going to go into the details of the case for obvious privacy reasons, but it appointed son and or daughter as the agent for making decisions. And, what do you do in that hypothetical when life supports the question and son thinks, mom might make it longer and daughter thinks she would want the plug pulled? How do you resolve that confusion?
Mm-hmm.
But seeing those types of issues come up, you can sit down with the person as they're drafting it and say, I'm happy to do both, but, if you can pick a priority or if you can pick a way to break a tie, we can stay out of court.
Yes.
Because the answer in that case is, hey, if there's a condition where someone's life is technically on the line and there's a significant disagreement between two people claiming authority, you got to resolve that one way or the other. And sometimes it involves going to court, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So the goal in drafting is to eliminate that sort of risk.
Okay. So I truly believe, using an attorney to do estate planning is really important, and finding someone that is more detail oriented as well. But depending on the size of the estate, is an attorney necessary for an estate plan?
Strictly speaking, sense of the term, no. The law contemplates, the probate code contemplates, at least in California, that you can do what's called a holographic will. And you can write up a document that, if it meets all the requirements, will function as a will. And there are legal forms out there that you can use. Do I recommend people do that? No. For two reasons. Number one, it's partial selfishness. I run a business. But no, the main reason is there are enough details that need to be considered that you don't know what you don't know. And while an attorney doesn't know you, the goal in that initial several meetings is to get to know you better and get to who you are and what you want to do, and think about the things you might not have thought of, or help you see things in a way you might not have considered, to make sure that you have the full option or all of your options available to you. So is an attorney necessary? No. Do I recommend that you talk to one? Absolutely. Like I said at the beginning, a little knowledge can go a long way. And really, this is about making sure that, again, some of your most significant assets are taken care of.
Very true. And getting all the details of who wants what of something that's really sentimental to them, that's really important too. So now, when it comes to making a estate plan, work with financial advisors, assurance agents, CPAs, and other entities. Can you go into some details about how to make sure that happens?
For sure. So when most of my clients come to me, it's either because they've experienced the passing of a loved one, or their CPA or financial planner has said, okay, cool, what's your trust say, or what's your will say? And they say, my what? But realistically, the job of a lawyer in the estate planning field is somewhat specific. If you already have a financial planner, if you already have a CPA or accountant you work with, or if you already have a life insurance agent, you're well on your way to completing your entire plan. I like to think of it as a team. Life insurance is there to ensure a basic level of defense, not necessarily against death, but ensuring that your estate carries on if you are suddenly removed from the world.
Yes.
No, if you're hit by a bus, if there's a heart attack, will your family, will your friends have the resources they need to keep going forward?
Yeah,
On
that's
that,
very important.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Beyond that, when you start investing, when you start saving from your 401k, when you even just open a savings account, how do you maximize that money that you're setting aside? And that's where a financial advisor can come in. I'm a lawyer. I studied law. I don't know the ins and outs of the market in the way that someone who studies that on a daily basis would. When it comes to taxes and maximizing the money that you retain, use the tax code, use the law in your favor. And that's where a CPA can come in. Now, each of these people has their own way of charging. Find out what that is, make sure you're comfortable with it, and make sure you trust them as an individual too. But the role of a CPA, the role of an accountant, can let you know if there are strategies available to minimize your taxable burden and save you money. And ideally, the CPA makes sense when they can save you more than you make. The financial advisor, sure, they're going to charge you for their time or whatever metric they use. But the idea is they may give you strategies or may handle your money, manage your money in a way that more than covers what they make. And for life insurance, it's nice to have that as a basis of your pyramid. And with any of my clients, whenever I sit down and meet with them, I want to know what they have and what they've started doing. And so whenever I do my intake with them, I always ask them, who's your CPA, who's your financial advisor, and who handles your life insurance? And if the answer to any of those three is my what? It's a conversation that we have.
Yeah.
And sorry, these keep sliding down my face, but
that's okay. Yeah. Are there any other financial entities that you ask about, or that's pretty much it?
It really depends on how the conversation goes. I try to let my clients do most of the talking. I'll intersperse, but I really want to learn about their lives and their goals and their interests. But other things to listen for, maybe they have a business. That's a completely different strategy right there. What sort of business is it? Are they a sole proprietor? Is it a partnership? Is it a corporation? Do they have a lawyer? What advise them to do? What does that succession agreement look like? Because again, like a trust is an entity, so is a corporation. It is separate from you, no matter how much you might be involved with it. So what does that structure do? How does that work? Getting those details, learning those bits and pieces is all part of helping me understand what you have and what you want to do with it.
Yes.
Also, in some cases, for some clients, helping them understand that, no, that really is an asset and you think about what you want to do with that.
Yes. Yes. And it's interesting. We don't want to think about this either, but you may want to have some long-term care options too, only because you never know if something's going to happen to you in your life. You
By
may
all
have a
means.
traumatic
That
accident.
is part of, at least the way I handle it, part of that planning. That Advanced Healthcare Care Directive and Medical Power of Attorney give people the authority upon that triggering moment to be able to act on your behalf. But it's also beneficial for a person to think about what they want that to look like.
Exactly.
Decide what they want that to look like. Let's figure out if that's feasible with where we are now.
Exactly.
Great. If it's not, well, let's figure out how we can get you there. And whether that's through your estate planning documents, your trust, your will, Advanced Healthcare Directive, or if it means having a conversation with your financial advisor to find out how you can get the money necessary to make that the reality you want it to be. That's where building a team around you, and this goes for anyone. I don't care if you're still renting and just coming out of college. Like, you may not need an estate plan there, but think about where you want to be. Start building those blocks, because part of peace of mind is knowing that you've taken care of the basics.
Yes, because it's tragic when somebody passes away young. It really is. That tears apart a family. It makes them, not only because they're mourning and grieving, it's just, what to do with what that young person had.
Oh, for sure. And again, we don't, unless any of us have learned something that I'm not aware of, we don't know how long we have.
Yes.
So, there's never too early of a time to consider it.
And
Not
it's always,
just to be real.
yeah, and it's also a modifiable document over time, because life does change over time. Like you said before,
For sure.
people get divorced. There might be more children. There might be maybe a child passed away. You just never know in life. And
Life is unpredictable, and my goal is to try and at least put some structure to your wishes so that people know what they are, and that everything you've worked hard to do goes where you need it to.
yes, yes. Well, we have a little bit more time for more details if you want to cover anything that we haven't covered so far. But I just want to make people aware of other things that they may want to look into, um, and ideas. The idea of making sure people get their sentimental values out of the home. Maybe they need to make this a family affair where they're meeting with their parents and an attorney, so they all get to know what's going on. Because you don't want to keep secrets from people. It doesn't do any good.
Now, with that in mind, I will say one thing. When I meet with clients, not only is there the attorney-client privilege, meaning I need to keep their secrets and everything is confidential, but at least in California, and I'm sure it's true also elsewhere. Again, I'm not speaking because I'm only licensed here in California, but there's the concept of influence or undue influence.
True.
And if son or daughter or a couple of people are here and all of a sudden that will really favors them, there's that lingering question in the background of, was that the product of coercion, or was that what mom or dad really wanted to do?
You're right about that.
While I do suggest to my clients that they consider seeking input from family, and while I suggest they consider talking to family about what they've chosen to do, it really is important that it is your decision and your decision alone as to how you want to manage your affairs. You want to avoid that risk. And again, that's where setting up a relationship with a good lawyer can really help minimize that. Because when you see how it can go wrong, you can take the steps necessary to ensure or minimize the risk of that claim being made. But by all yes, it is a family affair, and it's meant to be beneficial. This isn't meant to be burdensome, and that's where a lawyer can help take some of that burden off.
Yes, and the family dynamics or the relationships, I think the parents already established long before, but you never know what money will do to somebody too. I guess it's the best way to say it, right?
There was a movie that came out a number of years ago called Knives Out. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go watch it.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
It's a good murder mystery, so to speak.
Oh dear.
But it deals with the reading of a will. And
Okay.
I won't say anything further for there.
Yeah. It's not Agatha Christie type of thing, is it?
More or less, actually, as I understand, the writer, the director, producer, or the person that came up with it was heavily inspired by Agatha Christie.
Mm. There's been a lot of movies coming out similar to that recently, and murder mystery, whether it's on a train or something else. And sometimes they're intriguing, but they're also very predictable. So, but my whole point is, I've never been on the edge of my seat with those movies. And sometimes they, I don't know. You got me onto movies. I'm sorry. I'm a fan of old-fashioned good movies that really make you think. And some of the movies out today are not doing that.
Again, this is part of the planning for your estate, part of your planning for your future. I mentioned a couple of times ago, but if I have a conversation with a client that says that, and they've already given everything they want to their kids, and in fairness, yeah, I'm not saying you need to do charitable gifts. You can give it all to all of your kids. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But in a conversation like that, do you want to do anything with that? Do you want to make any donations to a local school or a local a film school or something like that?
Yeah. Or your
something
dog.
to consider that a lot of people don't necessarily think about.
I know they don't, but it just opens up a whole different world of what to do. And
Right.
It's nothing to be worried about it. It's just something to think about. And, hopefully you have enough time to really consider everything that you need to do. Right.
I will say one of the biggest concerns I've seen with clients while we're in this process is a bit of concern because you are contemplating your mortality, and that's difficult for people to do.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done it, once you've taken those steps, and once you've pushed through whatever difficulty there may be there, and that varies from person to person, you've put yourself in control. You've put yourself ahead of the game, and the relief that comes from having taken those steps, you can see it on people's faces. It's great.
Exactly. And also it's a relief for the people that have to do everything afterwards. So
right.
So I found it very, very much something that was really needed. Well, I want to thank you for being on my show, and your advice is very valuable. Would you like to be a guest again?
If you'd have me back, I'd be happy to come on anytime. Thank you very much for speaking with me today.
Oh, you're welcome. And if we have time for closing remarks, I'm going to have you come back. And I need to close out the show now. So thank you. So I want you guys. You're welcome. Guys, I want you to remember that I do revitalize people's lives in different areas of health by correcting your gut and giving you mental clarity. I do guide you to clean, toxic-free foods and high-quality nutritional products that will reduce symptoms. You'll feel better and possibly release some weight, and it'll uplift your mood. My coaching for mindset is for releasing stress, as well as reducing emotions and entanglements from the past. Pretty much, I'm enhancing your mindset and also making your body more efficient. So ask me about my programs on my link tree, which is at Debi Changes Lives, DebiChangesLives, LIV as in victory, ES.com/link tree. And there you get to know me. I get to know you, and I guide you to optimal health. And I have a few assessments I do. You can do one or two. And the first one is the health evaluation, where you're going to be rating your symptoms in 4 categories of health. You can go to the next slide. And you will get a health score. Now, these 4 categories of health may have repetitive questions to answer it pertaining to that category. I do review it with you, and if you move forward with my services or programs, we'll be monitoring on a monthly basis. The other 2 health evaluations I have are Zyto body scans, and I refer to it as a Zyto link. And what it is the transdermal optical imaging app. And I share the link to your phone. And I like using this because I can do it remotely and internationally. And I sent one to South Africa. Once you have it on your phone, you scan your face for 30 seconds. It's only looking at blood flow for components of emotional, functional, and energetic in different body systems and lifestyles. It generates a wellness report, not a diagnosis, of biomarkers out of range and products and services that bring it back into range. And it's quite intensive, and I do review it with you. It costs $50. But if you move forward with any of my products or my programs, you get a $25 discount on one of them. And this transdermal optical imaging technology is very accurate. And you can look it up on pubmed.com for transdermal optical imaging, or TOI. Also, I have a discount of 5 scans for the price of 4, saving you $50. People are pretty amazed what their body will tell them through the scanning. You'll be too. Also on the site are my programs, and I have many of them, and these are 3 of them. Take Your Body Back is a 12-week weight release mindset coaching program where you're going to be using a new version of you in the avatar board for success. All coaching is done on Zoom, and the first one's private to you. I do go over your health, and then I give you a choice of 2 programs of meal plans and directions on 1. I also give you directions on how to create that new version of you in an avatar board that'll drive you with emotion and passion to achieve your health or weight transformation goals throughout your journey. And the rest of the coaching, whether it's in group or private, we'll be celebrating your wins. Also, we'll be giving you health and mindset tips to get you over your gaps. You will become a new you, and you're welcome to watch a previous episode, Holistic Self-Love, for more details, or ask me. YFAST is an intermittent fasting program that gets your cells and body humming, and in turn boosts your metabolism with rich, dense nutrition and high-quality nutrients, exercises, and recipes. Here you ask me questions. If you need to get a small program to get yourself started, I have 2 or 4 week programs. These 2 or 4 week programs can be applied to mindset coaching as well as health coaching, and they can be customizable and extended. Now, I also, for a limited time, have something called Debi's Coaching Chats, which is a 30-minute coaching session in an intimate group setting. It's not recorded, and a survey picks a topic. You learn how to optimize your health, ways to release stress and emotions, how to harmonize your hormones, efficiently release weight, creating a winning mindset, utilize that winning mindset for health and weight transformations, and also creating that avatar board that will drive you with emotion and passion to achieve your health and weight transformation throughout your journey. It's at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. And you need to be registered at Debi Changes Lives. Again, that's DebiChangesLives, as in Victory, ES.com/chats. And when you do that, you get to know what my coaching is all about. Finally, learn more about alternative health programs, products, and services, upcoming promos and events, as shows by subscribing to my newsletter, which is at DebiChangesLives.com/radio TV show, all in lowercase and one word. And you'll be given a 30-day health and mindset daily action journal where you can record your gratitude, thoughts, feelings, emotions, the foods you ate, the water you drank, nutritional products you took, as well as the exercises done on a daily basis, and track your measurements. And you want to review this on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to see your wins and see your gaps to work on. If you need help bridging your gap, contact me. This journal is a great health and mindset awareness tool. I'm certain that you found this show educational, eye-opening, and enjoyed it. Reach out to me for my programs, products, and services, and Matt for his legal advice and services. If we have some more time, we can do a closing remark with Matt.
Hey, thanks for bringing me back.
Anything you want to say?
Sorry, what was that?
Anything you want to say?
Take the time, enjoy your time on this world, and have fun while doing it.
Okay, great.
There are no dress rehearsals. Enjoy the play.
Okay, thank you. So continue to enjoy my radio and TV show, Debi Changes Lives, where your holistic journey begins on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. Take care, everybody. And that's it. Thank you.